Welcome back, true believers and spectacular Spidey fans, to another Spider-Man PS4 related video, and it's one that you guys have been waiting for a while now. And again, I do apologize for not being able to upload more videos more consistently for all of you guys. College has been a complete bummer for me recently. I have just been head over heels in the work that college has been providing me, and I have no other choice but to deal with it, and I do apologize for that, but I am here for you guys. I am here to stay consistent. Again, replying to all your comments is a joy for me. I love doing all that, so if I respond days later, I do apologize, but I still try my very best to try and reply to each and every one of your comments because I love getting to interact with all of the true believers and the Spidey Squad members that I possibly can, because I love you guys and you guys deserve the best. Now, on to the video. We are now finally going to discuss about the web wheel, because you guys have been wanting me to finally talk about what it is, and I've been kind of teasing you guys about it for a while, and what my ideas for a web wheel is. And basically, the web wheel is a weapon wheel, because you see right there, that is a weapon wheel in Ratchet & Clank PS4. That is the weapon wheel that you can use in that game, as well as multiple other games that we have had in the past from both Insomniac Games and tons of other free-roaming third-person games in general. GTA, Red Dead Redemption, even Assassin's Creed does it at some points. Tons of stuff like that. Those are weapon wheels where you have tons of weapons in your disposal. Anytime you want to choose a different weapon, you can select which one to choose. And again, it either A, pauses the game like it does in Ratchet & Clank, or my favorite is in GTA, where it slows it down, where you bring up the selection of weapons that you want to choose and make sure you choose the right one for your playstyle and which one you want to take out the bad guys with, and you choose it. Or kind of how Prototype did it as well. Prototype actually had a weapon wheel where you could choose which monster arm you could use or monster power you could use to fight the other infected in the world. And what it did is that it slowed down time at first, and then it slowly started to go back into real time for the game. Which, by the way, is a good feature to have in a superhero/superpowered free-roaming game like that one. And what I mean for web wheel, since Spider-Man doesn't use any weapons, it'd be really interesting to see this feature be incorporated in the game. And actually, this isn't a feature that I like. This is a feature that I actually think could appear in some way or another in Spider-Man PS4. And just hear me out why. Even though Spider-Man doesn't use any weapons, he does have a lot of different web types and gadgets. Even though Batman is the one with all the gadgets, Batarangs, Bat Claws, Bat Gel, Batmobiles, Bat Sonar, Bat Cowl, Detective Mode, everything like that, that's the gadget guy. Batman is the gadget guy. I get that. However, Spider-Man is pretty darn smart if you think about it. Spider-Man is one of the smartest, if not the smartest, Marvel heroes or superheroes ever, besides Iron Man and other types of DC heroes like that, and other really super smart heroes like, in the types of Iron Man. But in terms of average smarts and pretty darn intellectual for an ordinary person, Spider-Man fits that category really well. And again, I made a video discussing which gadget types we could see in the game, or what type of gadgets we could see Spider-Man use. Again, you should go check out that video. But basically, to sum it up, I basically said we could see spider tracers, we could see the spider light, or we could see a communicator if he has one in his mask, if he's talking to other superheroes or something like that. Anything like that could be incorporated in the game in some way or another. But again, Spider-Man isn't the one to use technical gadget. He doesn't have spider rangs. He doesn't have any spider sonar ability. He has a spider sense. Again, since Spider-Man's powers are more supernatural, or not even in that sense, they are more superpowered in the sense of just gadgetry or mystical or even ghost-like. They are just more scientific. He can crawl up walls. He can run up walls. He can sense things that don't even happen yet that tell himself that he is in danger. He has super strength, super agility, and tons of other amazing acrobatic features. So with a weapon wheel, or the web wheel, that could add further to that within combat or even swinging. Now, you don't want to break the flow of the swinging, because the best part of any Spider-Man game is free roaming in the city. And of course, you don't want to have that be paused or delayed by any means, which is something that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 did, sadly. Every time you were fighting people in the alleyways, or trying to do a car chase, or saving people from a burning building, you had to start that side mission, and you also had to wait for the loading time to be over for that whole Daily Bugle thing report from Whitney Chang describing how Spider-Man's the best, and then move on with your game. But you don't want that, because that is interruptive of the game's content, as well as the swing and the flow and the freedom of swinging as Spider-Man. So with the web wheel, what it would be a weapon wheel that you could bring up for Spider-Man, and it would also show multiple types of webbing that you could use in the game, which is something that the old school Spider-Man PS1 games did. That game had the spider tokens floating around, where if you grab certain ones, they would add boosts of damage to your webbing. They would either make it fire webbing, electric webbing, freeze webbing, tons of different types of webbing. But this isn't a cartoon. This is trying to be having Spider-Man in the real world, and the most kind of grounded story that we can have for this game. Yet, since it's a Spider-Man game made by Insomniac Games, and they are trying to make this fit in the Marvel gaming universe, and they are trying to make it a kind of realistic story, like the Arkham games. And with all that in mind, you can't have like freeze webbing, electric webbing, unless you have other heroes help out Spider-Man. So if Tony Stark decides to help out, maybe even Moon Knight, maybe even Daredevil, tons of different heroes could pop up. But again, I do not think that's the case, since Spider-Man already seems to be smart as he is. He already seems like a very intellectual individual. So he might have assistance, but he is not going to be dependent on these other heroes, if there are any other heroes to be in this game in the first place, which I do think there will be. But as for the web wheel itself, what would be on it? Well, again, Insomniac Games has actually had tons of weapon wheels before. They've had them in all their Ratchet & Clank games, and they had it in their first free-roaming game of Sunset Overdrive. They had that as a feature in Sunset Overdrive, which is how I think the actual timing will work for that game and input into Spider-Man PS4, where you popped up the weapon wheel and everything was slow. You had to take your time choosing which weapon you wanted to use to fight the enemies. Whereas in Ratchet & Clank, it basically paused the game, which is fine, but it's kind of halting. It just, all of a sudden, you're moving, and you stop. You want it to keep being consistent and flow with the game. So again, the web wheel could work for tons of different things. It is a weapon wheel, but it could be used in multiple ways. Since in Ratchet & Clank and Sunset Overdrive, we have had the weapon wheels only used for combat, of course, where Ratchet and the player that you choose to customize in Sunset Overdrive just use weapons to take out enemies. Since Spider-Man is better than both of those two combined, since Spider-Man is more adapted and unique in that sense, and since he can use his powers to either fight enemies or swing around the city, there could be different ways for the web wheel to work. There could be a web wheel selection for you to choose different web types, because if you look at my part series, my 3-part series breaking down the Spider-Man costume, I break down the gloves of Spider-Man's hands, and on the gloves you see different pads, you see little different types of pads on his hands. That could indicate that if he pushes down on the black pad, which is what he was pushing down on to shoot out a streamline webbing, like a web line to swing, that could be fine. But then there are other like red pads kind of on the side of his palms. If he pushes down on those, what's not to make him stop doing another type of web move? What if he did web pellets? What if he did web spray instead of the line? He could like spray his web at his enemies to like blind them or something. And again, this could work in combat that has been not used in any of the Arkham games. Because how in the Arkham games, Batman just has a gadget wheel to choose which gadget to use one at a time. You could do the quick fire gadgets, but that was mainly for combat. You had to use the gadget wheel to try and select which gadget to use for which scenario you are in. So you had to use the line launcher to get across one gap. You had to use the bat claw to pull down a structure. You had to use the batarangs to try and knock out certain switches or something. whereas for combat, it was seamless and quick and non-interruptive at all. Whereas right there, you're seeing two different selections of weapon wheels for Ratchet and Clank, and that completely halts the game. And again, there's two sections. One is for your normal weapons, and one is for the special weapons in Ratchet and Clank. That is why there are two different variations of the weapon wheel in that game. Whereas for Spider-Man, it could be the same thing, and same thing with Sunset Overdrive. They mixed that too. Insomniac Games use the weapon wheels in most of their games, so what's not stopping them from doing it in Spider-Man PS4? With Sunset Overdrive, they also did the incorporation of that as well, with the light weapons on one section of the wheel and the heavy weapons / special weapons on the other side. So with Spider-Man, it could range from different web types. Again, web line, web spray, web pellets. Even though they are using his web shooters and they're not going to make it like the Amazing Spider-Man games, this Spider-Man seems very more technical and very more outgoing than the other Spider-Man. Like, he seems more experienced. Of course, they've already said that. But just the way he's fighting, it seems like there's going to be different methods. Again, he's using his environment. He's using his two web shooters to string his web onto the enemy to slam him on the ground. He's using long-distance web attacks to try and knock out the guy from afar. So there's tons of different things to do. As for swinging, this is something that's never been done before. The weapon wheel, or the web wheel, could actually be used for swinging as well. It could be used for one strand of webbing to be shot out of Spider-Man's web shooters. It could also be used for multiple strands. Like, the one feature I really love in swinging around in New York City is dual hand swinging. That was actually incorporated in Spider-Man 3 out of all the other games, weirdly enough, and it was shown in the trailer for Spider-Man PS4, where that scene that people say it's a CGI cutscene where he's shooting with both hands to shoot out web lines to swing. And also when the cafe scene where he's trying to pull himself through the window to crash through that window and get out of the cafe. He's using two of his hands. That could be a web wheel type selection. You could choose to do that. You could choose to use both hands to swing, one hand to swing. You could use your acrobatic abilities to swing. You could use your web spray, web lines, web pellets even. Tons of different options if Insomniac actually decides to incorporate a weapon wheel in the game, or a web wheel as I like to call it, since there is not any weapons that Spider-Man will use since he doesn't use weapons. And again, tons of different options could happen for combat and swinging. Since this is a free roaming game, they could incorporate that in any other type of situation for Spider-Man, and that would top the previous games that we've had so far for Spider-Man, and would offer something unique for Insomniac Games, as well as something different that we have never seen in any Spider-Man game before, and it would be innovative as a way to beat the Arkham combat, as well as try and do something really special for Spider-Man, with different ways and variations to take out enemies of your choosing. Like, you wanted to use one way with his webs, very acrobatic webbing, or strong webbing, or very fast webbing, or with swinging, you want to use acrobatic swinging, or fast-paced swinging, or really high swinging to get there in really high places. There's tons of options to do for the web wheel. These are just some of my thoughts. Let me know what all your thoughts are in the comment section down below, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, True Believers. Stay spectacular, everybody. I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.